You're sitting on the couch after a long day, the kind of day where you don't really want to talk about it. And then your dog walks over, doesn't bark, doesn't whine, just quietly presses the side of their body against your leg and stays there. You scratch behind their ears without even thinking about it, and something in you exhales a little. You probably chalk that up to coincidence, or instinct, or just something dogs do. But what if that moment wasn't random at all? What if your dog read something in you, something you hadn't even said out loud, and made a deliberate choice to respond? That's the part most of us miss. We're so focused on what dogs do that we forget to ask why they do it, and more importantly, who they're doing it for. There's a quiet conversation happening between dogs and humans all the time. It doesn't involve barking. It doesn't involve growling. It's slower than that, subtler, built from glances and postures and gestures most people brush right past. And the remarkable thing is that dogs have been refining this language for tens of thousands of years. Not to talk to each other, but specifically to talk to us. That's worth sitting with for a moment. Other animals communicate with their own kind. Dogs do that too, of course. But somewhere along the way, they developed a second layer. A whole separate set of signals aimed directly at humans. Scientists who study this have found that dogs use at least 19 distinct gestures to communicate specific desires and needs to their owners. Not vague expressions of mood. Actual requests. Directed at a person, not at another dog. We just haven't always known how to listen. One of the most misread signals is also one of the most common. It's the yawn. You see your dog yawn and think, tired, bored, probably ready for a nap. But behaviorists have spent decades studying this, and the picture is more complicated. When dogs yawn in response to tension, during a vet visit, when strangers crowd around them, when you're raising your voice, they're not expressing fatigue. They're doing something closer to what we'd call taking a breath before a difficult conversation. It's a self-soothing gesture, yes, but it's also a message. A kind of white flag. I'm not a threat. I'm not escalating. Please don't either. Norwegian dog trainer Turid Rugas, who spent years cataloging what she called calming signals, documented yawning as one of the most deliberate tools in a dog's emotional vocabulary. And here's the part that surprises people. If you yawn at your dog during a moment of stress, many dogs will yawn back. It's not mimicry for its own sake, it's recognition. They understand the gesture, and they're responding to it. Eye contact works differently with dogs than most people assume. We tend to think of holding someone's gaze as warm, connected, attentive. With dogs, a fixed stare from a stranger reads as pressure, sometimes as a threat. But soft eye contact, the kind that comes with a slight blink, means something else entirely. It means I see you, and I'm calm. Research from the University of Parma found that dogs watching another dog blink on screen blinked significantly more themselves. Not because they were mimicking mindlessly, but because blinking appears to function as a kind of emotional signal that travels between individuals. Dogs who are closely bonded with their owners tend to mirror each other's blinking in a way that researchers describe as a marker of deep connection. When a dog blinks slowly at you from across the room, it's not spacing out. It's saying something closer to, I trust you, we're okay. Then there's leaning. Dogs lean into people they love, pressing their weight against a leg or a hip in a way that's easy to interpret as clinginess, or just the absence of personal space. But leaning is deliberate. It's a form of physical contact that doesn't involve jumping, doesn't require anything from you, and doesn't demand attention the way pawing at someone does. It's quiet. It's chosen. Dogs rarely use prolonged physical contact with other dogs, but with humans, many dogs seek it out specifically. The lean is one of the ways they close a distance that can't be closed with words. Lip licking is one that almost everyone gets wrong. A dog licks its lips and people think, hungry, smelled something good, maybe just had a drink. But lip licking when there's no food present, when nothing has changed in the environment, when a stranger has just walked in, or a loud sound has just happened, is something different. It's a displacement behavior, the canine equivalent of a person clearing their throat, or glancing away during an uncomfortable silence. The dog is managing something internal and letting you know very quietly that something feels off. The same goes for yawning when a dog isn't tired, sniffing the ground when there's nothing new to smell, or suddenly needing to scratch an itch that appeared out of nowhere. These are what behaviorists call displacement behaviors. They cluster together, and when you see several of them in a short window of time, that's not a coincidence. That's your dog telling you the situation has gotten to be a bit much. The tail, which everyone thinks they understand, is actually one of the more nuanced signals dogs use. A wagging tail does not mean a happy dog. A wagging tail means an emotionally activated dog. The emotional color of that activation depends entirely on the speed, the height, and the stiffness of the wag. A wide, loose, full-body wag that starts almost at the dog's ribs, that's joy. That's relief. That's your home, and I couldn't be happier about it. A stiff, rapid wag with the tail held high and the body barely moving, that's a different register entirely. The motion is the same word used in a very different tone of voice. Height matters. A tail carried low, sweeping gently, usually signals ease. A tail held up like a flag signals alertness, sometimes confidence, sometimes something closer to wariness. And a tucked tail, not just lowered, but curled underneath, is the body contracting, making itself smaller, trying to occupy less space in a world that feels too large in that moment. Ears are harder to read because they vary so much between breeds. A dog with naturally floppy ears simply can't signal the same way a dog with upright ears can. But in general, ears that shift slightly forward mean the dog is focused and engaged. Ears that flatten back, whether the dog is baring its teeth or not, are communicating something closer to unease. And ears that swivel independently, tracking sounds from different directions, are doing what dogs do best, taking in information, reading a room, staying alert to a world that is almost unimaginably richer in sensory detail than ours. A dog's sense of smell is estimated to be 40 times more sensitive than a human's, which means that when your dog freezes at a certain spot on the sidewalk or sniffs the corner of a visitor's jacket for longer than seems polite, they are reading layers of information you simply cannot access. The sniff isn't delay, it's data. There's a behavior that often gets misread as aggression or dominance: the paw raise. A dog lifting one paw off the ground and holding it there. In certain breeds, this is a hunting signal, the body paused mid-motion to indicate prey nearby. In everyday life, it usually means something quieter, uncertainty, a slight hesitation before committing to a direction. The dog isn't frozen in fear, and it isn't posturing. It's at a crossroads, and it's letting you see that. And then there's the behavior that might be the most generous in a dog's whole vocabulary: the play bow. Front legs stretched forward, rear end raised, a shape that looks almost like a yoga pose. Every species that has spent time around dogs learns to recognize it. It means whatever comes next is play. Whatever noise I make or move. It's not a threat, it's an invitation. It's a dog's way of changing the tone of a situation before it even begins, of saying this is going to be fun. And I want you to know that before we start, what all of these signals share is that they're aimed outward, not just expressed, but directed. Research into dog communication has found that dogs look at the faces of the people they're with in a way that other domestic animals don't. They check in. They glance up at you when something uncertain is happening. Not because they've been trained to, but because over thousands of years of living alongside humans, dogs have developed a genuine orientation toward our emotional states. They notice when your posture changes. They notice when your voice gets quieter than usual. They notice things you might not have consciously registered yourself. That moment on the couch, your dog pressing against your leg at the end of a hard day, wasn't a coincidence. It was a response to something real. They felt the shift in you before you fully felt it yourself, and they moved toward it the only way they knew how, quietly, without being asked. That's not just instinct. That's a conversation. And it's been going on longer than most of us have taken the time to hear.